This week we have seen some interesting watch releases. They're not interesting enough on their own to warrant a whole video, but altogether I think they're worth talking about. So the first release I want to talk about is the new Farer Chronograph. Farer is this sort of micro brand that's trying to break into mainstream. It is similar to Baltic, it's similar to Yamaha watches. It's crossing that line into mainstream. They already had a chronograph model in their roster. Now they just changed the color variation and made it in titanium. I like both of the versions. So one of the versions is called the Carnegie, the other one is called Bernina. And once again, the only difference between the two is the different coloring. I personally prefer the Carnegie, the one with the blue bezel and this chocolate brown dial. I like me a good chronograph. As I mentioned, the Yamaha that I'm wearing right now is a chronograph. I also reviewed this Baltic here. So this watch is sort of similar to these watches. It's also competing in the same price point, about $1,995 US, so just under $2,000. It's powered by the Sellita SW510 manual wind movement, has a 63-hour power reserve, 28,800 beats per hour. The bezel is ceramic. I like the styling of this watch, and of course it will be feather light because it's made out of grade 2 titanium. I haven't reviewed any Farer watches on the channel yet. I'm hoping to do so later this year. Nevertheless, it's kind of an interesting and exciting release that I wanted to highlight. The Longines Spirit Zulu Time in 39mm case diameter now. Previously, it was only available in 42mm case diameter, and of course a lot of people found that to be slightly uncomfortable. Not everyone likes these larger watches, not everyone has the wrist for these larger watches. When the 42mm version was announced, a lot of people liked that watch because it was around $3,000 proper GMT watch from one of the legacy brands like Longines. Good value for money, pretty good watch, but it was too large for a lot of people. Well, now it being available in 39mm kind of goes in hand with the way industry is moving, the way trends are moving. They're moving into smaller watches, and I think Longines kind of nailed it with this watch. It's available in a few different color combinations, including a true two-tone version with a gold bezel and a gold crown. Not a huge fan of this look. I think it looks pretty good, but I prefer the blue or the green versions, and those versions are of course also slightly cheaper. On the bracelet, this watch will be about $3,150 US, and the two-tone gold version will be about $4,300 US. Those are the MSRP prices, but as we all know, Longines is notorious to go on sale. If you look at these watches on the gray market in about a year or so, we'll be able to find them for around $2,000. Probably not the two-tone one, but for the stainless steel versions for sure, maybe $2,500, $2,000. And for that price, I think it's an amazing watch, given that it goes to that price point. But even at its full price of $3,100 US, it is still one hell of a deal. It's cheaper than the Tudor Black Bay GMT. It's thinner than the Tudor Black Bay Pro, offers the same functionality, comes from a legacy brand, and overall Longines is just a good underrated brand. Now moving on to the next release, the Tissot Powermatic in 35mm. Not really much to say about this. It is sort of similar to what Longines is doing. They're taking one of their very popular models, the PRX. That model really hit it off with a lot of watch collectors, and now having it available in a smaller 35mm case diameter is just a nice next step. It's a nice progression to this model. If you have a smaller wrist, you can definitely rock this watch now, because the watches with integrated bracelets tend to wear a little bit larger, so some people with smaller wrists might not have liked that 40mm case diameter. It is also available in so many different funky color options, so some ladies out there might like these watches. Now you can get his and hers. I think it's just the right step for Tissot, and I like what they're doing with their Powermatic PRX watches. I think they're creating that as sort of a brand within itself, kind of similar to what Tudor has done with their Black Bay watches. Black Bay line of watches is of course part of Tudor, but it is kind of known as its own thing. When you say Black Bay, that's what people think of, and I think Tissot is trying to achieve the same thing with their PRX line of watches, create sort of a brand within a brand. Moving on to Seiko 5 that celebrates a 55th anniversary. They have released 4 new models. Why not 5? Seiko 5, 55 years, release 5 models, Seiko. What the hell are you doing? Besides this misstep, the models are actually pretty cool. There's 1 limited edition model and 3 non-limited edition models. Of course, the limited edition model is the coolest one, thanks Seiko. The bad news, it's going to be pretty expensive, $450 and it is also a limited edition. The good news, it's 39.5 millimeters in diameter and it looks really nice. It is sort of a reissue of the original from 1968. It has the same straight lugs, the same vintage bracelet. The overall design and the look of the watch is very similar. I really like how this watch looks. I just hate the fact that it's a limited edition. The other 3 watches, the non-limited edition ones, yeah, they look pretty good, but to be honest, they kind of look like the usual Seiko 5 watches. They feature the new logo, they feature day-date complication. The bezels are all different, the dials are all different. Out of the 3 variants, my personal favorite is probably this black dial version. I think it really looks sharp. The orange one also looks kind of unique. The silver one, I don't know, I can take it or leave it. So these ones are in a bigger case. They're in that standard 42.5 millimeter case. They have sort of the styling and the sizing of your SKX. So if you had one of these watches, that's basically how this watch will wear on your wrist. It features the 4R36 automatic movement with a day-date complication, a crown at the 4. It's not a screw-down crown, yet the watch still has plenty of water resistance. It's a pretty good watch. $350 is the MSRP for these non-limited release ones. I think it's okay. They could do better on the price, and I wouldn't be surprised if these watches are heavily discounted in a couple of years or so, because I mean, they are cool, but I don't think they stand out enough. That limited edition one though, limited to 15,555 units, that one is actually pretty cool. I wouldn't mind getting something like that. But these ones, yeah, they look all right, but they don't do nothing for me personally. Moving on to next release, Citizen Series 8 GMT watches. This release was actually very interesting to me because Citizen doesn't usually take the route of heavy homaging. The other release that was from Citizen recently that was sort of inspired by some watches, the NJ0150, the one with the integrated bracelet. Yeah, that watch is sort of an homage to a few different watches. Well, this one here is for sure an homage to a few different watches. So if you look at the different variants, clearly very inspired by the GMT watches from Rolex. Also has a similar integrated bracelet and the case to the AP Royal Oak. So it's sort of combining the 2 watches into one, merging them, so to speak. Personally, not a big fan of this. I think it looks kind of cheap. Maybe cheapens the Citizen brand a little bit, but hey, that's just my opinion. Out of the 3, I guess I prefer the Batman the most. However, I really love the dial on this root beer one. It looks like this frosted glass almost. I think it looks really unique. And actually this root beer version will be a limited release. So I think they're only releasing 1,300 units of this watch, and it's priced at $17.95. So I think it's going to be kind of a difficult watch to find because it's a true jumping hour GMT watch for under $2,000, and it does look kind of cool if you're into these type of watches. The other 2 are non-limited release watches, and they're priced at $16.75. The case size is not outrageous. It's 41 millimeters diameter by about 13.5 millimeters thickness, and it has 100 meters of water resistance, that bi-directional GMT bezel. Some people might enjoy this type of watches. Out of the 2, between this and the Longines, I prefer the Longines. I just like the original styling a little bit more. These ones here are for a very specific buyer. And moving on to the last release, and actually another release from Citizen. Citizen introduces this new blue 5-watch collection to celebrate the World's Ocean Day. It's a United Nations designated holiday to kind of save the oceans, to raise the awareness about all the pollution that's happening in the oceans. Very nice, worthy cause. I think a lot of watch companies are getting behind this cause. The one that comes to mind is, of course, from direct competitor to Citizen, from Seiko. They have their Save the Oceans line. I'm a big fan of that line. I think they nailed it with those watches, with the designs. Citizen is sort of trying to do something similar with this range of models. Some models work better than others. It's a total of 5 limited release models. The Pro Diver one, I think, works the best because it's a diver watch. It's World Ocean Day, that makes sense. Some of the other ones don't really make as much sense, like the 2 lady watches. They look kind of unique and interesting, and I guess if you're a lady and you want to celebrate the Ocean's Day, okay, but I don't know if it really makes that much sense to have, celebrate World's Ocean Day on a dress watch. And the other 2 men's watches, the Tissot Chronograph, it looks cool and I like the blue dial, but I prefer the original more. And the Atomic Timer looks, once again, really cool. It's a cool watch on its own, but I don't know if I'll be running out to the store to buy one of these watches right away. I think that's why the limited release for these models is smaller, about 2,200 pieces for the Atomic Time one and about 2,400 pieces for the Tissot regular World Time / Chronograph. The Pro Diver has the biggest limited release, about 7,000 pieces. It's also the cheapest at about $475. I think that's the one that they really expect to sell the most of, and I think that's the coolest one. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching all the way until the end. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know, out of the releases that I mentioned, which ones excite you, which ones you can do without. I always enjoy reading your comments. Also, let me know if you like this sort of format of the video for the future, where I kind of recap the news, events, and releases that happened in the week prior and kind of sum it up in one video, give you my opinion on it. So this way you're not crazy like me and you're not reading watch news every day. Some of us have lives. I'm not one of those people and don't have time to read all the watch news and all the watch releases. Here, I try to kind of put it all together and make it easier for you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.